mynews.studio.
Picture this. A coal ship sits idle in Santa Marta, and at the same time, 24 countries have just signed an agreement to phase out fossil fuels. Is this the beginning of the end for oil's global dominance?
Today's date is 2025-12/02. Here's the headline. 1/3 of the world's countries, with Colombia and the Netherlands leading, have committed to a concrete roadmap to end fossil fuel use. This comes even though COP30 in Brazil didn't mention fossil fuels at all. Why now? What changed?
It comes down to breaking a deadlock. At COP30 in Belém, negotiators hit a wall. Petrostates refused to allow any mention of fossil fuels. So, Colombia and the Netherlands decided to go their own way, bringing 24 countries with them, including Australia and the UK. It's a way of saying, if progress stalls within the UN, some countries will keep moving.
But with only 1/3 of countries on board, is that enough to shift global climate policy? Or does it just create a separate pathway?
It's not the whole world, but it's meaningful. This group includes the UK, which just became the first major economy to stop issuing new fossil fuel exploration licenses in the North Sea. That's a substantial move. Plus, the coalition is set to host the first international conference on the just transition away from fossil fuels in 2026, right in Santa Marta.
Santa Marta, a major coal port. That's a deliberate choice, isn't it?
Exactly. It's intentional. Colombia is the 5th largest coal producer globally. By holding the summit in Santa Marta, they're directly confronting the challenges, not avoiding them. The idea is to bring everyone to the table: government officials, indigenous leaders, workers, industry representatives, academics, and work out practical plans, not just make promises.
So what's on the agenda for that conference? Are we looking at more discussions, or will there be concrete steps and ways to measure accountability?
The main focus is a just transition. That means figuring out legal, economic, and social ways to phase out fossil fuels without leaving behind the communities that depend on them. Justice and equity are at the core, with a particular emphasis on vulnerable groups. The Brazilian presidency will be responsible for reporting back on progress at COP31 in Turkey, which sets a checkpoint for accountability.
But how will progress actually be tracked? Are there real enforcement mechanisms, or is this mostly about reputation and public pressure?
Enforcement is built into the process itself. Strategies will be shaped in Santa Marta by all participants: governments, workers, communities. Oversight isn't just handed down from the top, it's collaborative. The coalition's agreement, the Belém Action Mechanism, requires regular progress updates and public reporting. It's not a binding treaty, but it does create pressure both publicly and diplomatically.
Let's talk about people's lives. If you work in coal or oil, what happens to your job? How will this transition be financed?
That's at the heart of the issue. The transition will disrupt whole communities: coal miners, oil workers, even entire towns. The plan is to use grant-based funding, not loans, to support retraining and economic diversification. The message is clear. Developing countries shouldn't bear the cost of a crisis they didn't create. That's why the Belém Declaration talks about a just and funded transition.
So wealthy nations are expected to provide most of the funding?
That's the goal. The coalition recognizes that if developing countries have to borrow, the transition won't happen on the scale needed. Direct support is essential.
Let's zoom out for a second. Why couldn't COP30 even mention fossil fuels? And does this coalition approach really stand as an alternative?
At COP30, the consensus rule means any single country can block progress. Petrostates use that power to prevent any mention of fossil fuels. The coalition model avoids that problem. It's a group of willing countries moving forward, making policy, and leaving the door open for others to join, but not waiting for unanimous agreement.
Could this become a blueprint for climate action? Smaller groups making firm commitments, and then others joining as momentum increases.
That's what they're hoping for. If this coalition can show real progress, especially in terms of justice and funding, they could set a pattern for others. It's a turning point. Action doesn't have to wait until everyone agrees.
So, to sum up, 24 countries, including major players in coal and oil, are charting a course away from fossil fuels, centering justice and equity. They're betting that leadership by example, rather than waiting for consensus, will move things forward.
That's right. The impact could be substantial. If these nations follow through, it could shift energy markets, policies, and international climate action into new territory.
That's it for today's episode. We explored how a coalition is breaking the fossil fuel stalemate, why Santa Marta matters, what a just transition could look like, and how new models for climate action are emerging.
We'll keep watching to see if these commitments turn into real change. Thanks for listening. This episode was brought to you by mynews.studio. You can try it for free.